Hey there, folks, and welcome back to the Grave Consequences podcast. I am Caleb V. That's where you can follow me on Twitter. I am joined, as always, of course, by my good friend Greg, who you can follow at xmaserati. We'll put that in the description. We are not alone for the Season 2, Episode 1 premiere of the Grave Consequences podcast. We are joined by my good friend and co-host of Eddie and Caleb's HeroCast. We are joined, and you just heard him last night when we reviewed Elektra, as god-awful and pointless as that was. My good friend Eddie C85, that's EDDYC85. Eddie Cornelison, I guess, is his shoot name. I guess I could have said that earlier, but whatever. Now you're doxed, Eddie, and welcome to, for your very first time, and our second guest in the history of this podcast. Welcome to the Grave Consequences podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, it's like this was, it's a premiere. It's important. We got to pull out the big guns, And I'm like, okay, pulling out Eddie Cornelison right now, right away. Greg, I haven't let you speak yet, and now you can. Man, honestly, it feels great to be back and recording. It really does.
I mean, we're getting back into the groove of things. I'm trying to do some new things. Maybe get us a new icon, new image, new avatar. Mm-hmm. Probably want to try to. Normally, we pay a guy to do it, but I want to try to do it on my own. Come up with something a little bit newer to commemorate the new season. It won't be ready for when this drops, but I that's something I'm going to be working on down the pipe. I think we talked about putting out an episode where we talked about all the things we learned our first season, doing a full season of a podcast. Mm-hmm. We never did it.
Hey, that's fine. You know what I learned? I learned that it takes time.
It takes time. Never commit to anything unless you're absolutely going to do it. As in that episode, I don't even know if we brought it up on the air. If we did, let's pretend like we didn't. But yeah, I'm excited to be a little bit more. I don't want to use the word professional, but a little bit more like we belong.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Regardless of the lack of people that did not vote for our card in the Social Suplex Fantasy Draft, which, by the way, go screw yourselves. You picked the wrong card when you didn't pick us. But regardless of those people, we friggin' belong here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Some would say this network doesn't exist without me, because the second show on this network that was not One Nation Radio, I was 1/3 of that podcast, and that show kind of helped inspire the existence of Keeping It Strong Style. And then from Keeping It Strong Style came Ricky and Clive, and came, 8-Bit Suplex and everything else we've had here on the network. And so we damn sure belong. I love to troll from time to time, but in all seriousness, I know we belong.
Well, as I said, I even said in the group chat, and I said to everyone, like, I was really proud of my card, even though we didn't get a lot of votes, like, at all. Yeah. I'm going to chalk that up to an audience. Like, we don't really have the audience everyone else has.
No.
And I was thinking about it for...
Well, you could say that, but, like, I think, and I'm sorry to cut in, as I always do. Hey, first cut into the season. I don't know that it was the audience thing, because 8-Bit got the win, and their listenership, I think, might still be less than ours. Probably since we took the month off, but...
Are you sure about that? Because I think he does better than us normally, doesn't he?
There for the longest time, we were doing just a smidge better.
Really? Wow. Well, I mean, audience as in size, but I also think in taste as well. And I don't mean bad or good. I just mean, like, me and you will watch a match, and I think I have a reputation as where I'll appreciate certain things in a match that no one else will see, like certain kind of psychology or a certain kind of story they're telling, and I'll be able to appreciate it more than someone else would. And I feel like and I've felt this way I don't argue with people on wrestling stuff online, because people just, even if someone like you and James will both find someone, even though I think you and James have different taste in wrestling, both of you can go online and find a take that you're like, man, that's the worst take I've ever seen. And you'll both agree on that same take being terrible. Like there's some interesting tastes. There's some tastes that don't make sense. I mean, I think I had to like realize like, wow, like I think our card was very interesting and had a lot of, juxtaposition, like a lot of interesting matchups, but everyone else, I think that was voting kind of just wanted standard, top name versus top name, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But enough about our sour grapes, about how we got screwed by the voting contingency. By the way, thank you to the 5 people or 6 people that did vote for us. It's very appreciated. But let's talk about Lucha Underground here. And before we get into the episode, Eddie, I want to ask you, were you watching season 2 as it was airing?
Yes, I was. So I first got introduced to Lucha Underground during season 1. I did not have El Rey, but a friend of mine did, and he kept raving about it. And I went to his house, I watched it, and like the first 5 minutes, I was like, I don't get it. This sucks. It was a backstage segment with Johnny Mundo and I think Alberto Del Rio, which I'm already out on. But and I'm watching it, and I'd never seen anything like this before. So I'm thinking like, why are they filming it this way? Why are the wrestlers not acknowledging that there's a camera there? Why are they acting like this is a movie? This doesn't make any sense. And then my friend was like, no, this is how it is. It's like the backstage stuff is like a TV show. And as I watched the episode, I started to figure it out, watched a few more. I was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then he had like he was the only one with El Rey, and he had like a big season 2 premiere. So I do remember watching this episode as it aired. We got rid of the music. We got Shao Kahn on the throne. So I do remember this episode vividly. So it was nice to rewatch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, just euphoria that I felt when season 2 started, because there for the longest time, we didn't know if we were going to get a season 2. This could have fallen by the wayside, much like a show that was not nearly as good, Wrestling Society X, just like that did. And it took a few months after the first season ended for this to get renewed. So when it got renewed, people were very excited. People were waiting. They were chomping at the bit. What's going to happen? Mil Muertes is the champion. Dario Cueto is on the run. What's going to happen? And then we get our answers. And let's go right into it. Season 2, episode 1. The title of this episode, and maybe Greg will have an alternate title. Maybe he won't. No pressure either way. But the title of this episode is A Much Darker Place. And this episode was started off. We see Ian Hodgkinson, in a clinic, specifically the Yusef Fluoro Clinic, the Psychotic Break Division, which, by the way, I'm sure is real.
At least the Vampiro it is.
Yes, it's still real to him, damn it. What's the word I'm looking for here? But the guy who was analyzing him.
The psychoanalyst?
That either one of those work, yeah. He said, do you know why you're here or what today is? Vampiro says, you know what, it's graduation day, yeah. The guy says, well, it depends on my diagnosis here. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Vampiro is given an antipsychotic called aripiprazole. I think I pronounced that right, and I know I spelled it right. But either way, and by the way, I did notice that this doctor, he kind of looked like Gavin McInnes to a degree.
Maybe his younger brother. I can see that.
He didn't have the chin.
Yeah. The whole time I was thinking was like, man, we're spending a lot of time on Vampiro.
Yeah. Well, they had to ease it in on us. They had to go slow. But I was watching this, and he says like, "Are you okay? You free to go? You got any problems?" And Vampiro just snaps, just beating the crap out of everyone. And as cool as this choreography was, the only thought that came to my mind, knowing what I know about Vampiro and having rewatched the first season of this show, is this was definitely Vampiro's idea.
Yeah, or at least he got into people's ears, and I think I remember I was listening to Conan, and he was talking about some of the problems with what led to Lucha Underground's ultimate demise was, people getting into other people's ears, people finding out people were fans of them, and then taking advantage of that to get more time. I mean, Vampiro does have a major storyline going throughout it, so I'm not actually really complaining that much, but you just can't help but think about like, okay, we are kind of spending a lot of time on an announcer.
Yeah.
You have Puma, you have Pentagon, and it makes it more clear like why they don't open with them right off of the bat. But it's just one of those things where it just nags at you. It's not like a real, mark against it. It's just like, man, you can see where Vampiro is getting some love from the creative talent.
For sure. And so, we snap back to reality, and none of that actually happened. Vampiro wasn't breaking arms. He wasn't biting people. He just says, yeah, I'm good.
Maybe it was a commentary on how Vampiro views the world and how the world actually is. Maybe it's just really meta like that.
Yeah, maybe that's it. And the doctor says, do you have anyone here to pick you up? Of course he does. He's got Matt Stryker. But I have a question. Why was there a tarp over Matt Stryker's car?
And why was it in the middle of the desert?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as someone who drives a nice car, I can answer both those questions. Number one, he had to park it in the desert, so he didn't have to park next to someone, so avoid any door dings. And in the desert, a lot of sand that can damage a paint job, so he wanted to keep it covered. Plus, there was no top, so you don't want any sand in the interior. So Matt Stryker, just a thinking man.
Damn, that's a real answer too.
That is. Mm-hmm. And I would like to think that Matt Stryker made Vampiro walk to his car from a great distance.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, yes. Of course.
It's not digging my car for Vampiro. Get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
He can walk. You crazy bastard.
And Vampiro says, are we still doing the thing? And Matt's like, yeah, we are, but it's different. It's a much darker place.
And don't forget the psychoanalyst told him that he has to avoid places that trigger him to violence.
Mm-hmm.
So he's immediately going against the doctor's orders.
Absolutely. Who, by the way, Greg, who was in the former office of El Jefe?
My future wife, Katrina, has now taken charge of the temple, and our buddy Mill, who has now made a throne, and I'm not sure if you remember this, but they had a comic book in between the seasons.
Yes.
And yeah, that throne is made up of a pile of bones from the previous band with the guy
from the guys who
with M. Bison, whoever they were.
Not come back from the first season.
Oh, it was Mexican Budweiser.
Dubweiser,
excuse me.
But
he killed them and made a throne out of their bones.
By the way, no, not out of their bones necessarily, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely Big Rick's bones for sure.
Oh, Big Rick died too?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was written off because of he retired.
Oh, I didn't know it was supposed to. See, did they ever announce that he was in the show? Did they ever make that clear?
No, that was just a little detail, a little bit of fan service in the comic book. That's all.
Oh, man.
There's an Easter egg later of him as a missing person on a wall. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention that. But...
Oh, you're fine. We break our own rule about spoilers all the time.
We try not to be like, hey, this was the main event of Ultima Luchadors. Don't do anything like that. But
Big Rick on a milk carton's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. But Katrina is in the former office of El Jefe, and who should be the first person to confront her? But of course, our reigning Gift of the Gods holder, Phoenix. And he says, "I'm back, and I'm coming for Mil Muertes and his title." And Katrina says, "You got to wait a week. You got to wait until next week, if you still have that title, because there's a man who's been hunting you for months now, King Cuerno." And he informed me he would like to challenge you for the Gift of the Gods. And she granted the match. So she granted us the privilege to see Phoenix versus King Cuerno. Very excited to see that for sure.
And you know, it's very interesting because it's kind of teaching us a lesson to not piss where you eat.
Yes.
Because she's an estranged ex, and now she's using her power over him. It's technically, it could have been a Me Too moment for Phoenix. He could have doxed her, got her canceled, but this is before all this happened, right?
He could have got her canceled from an underground fight club.
Exactly. I'm glad you're on the same page as me.
Yes.
That doesn't seem like a place with an HR department, though.
I was going to say, I think the HR department is Matanza.
He might be more helpful than my HR department.
Oh, wow. Shots fired at Redacted Incorporated.
Boom, boom.
By the way, she also warned us, and you alluded to it, she also warned us that Mil Muertes would be watching. And that's when we cut to Mil Muertes on a throne. Excited.
And he's definitely given off those, like you said, I think, Eddie, you said earlier, Shao Kahn kind of vibes where he's just this big ass blast boss on his throne watching the other contestants fight before they get an opportunity to come at him.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I get it. Like, we'll find out later why he's in his gear. But, like, from watching, like, those promos towards the end of the season, like, bruh, Mil Muertes rocks the shit out of a suit. So I kind of wish he was in the suit during this episode, but I get why he was not.
I get it too, but like I just like when over the top is done correctly, especially on this show. And there was a comment in our people were making before where they're like, "Well, what do we do next in WWE?" And I was like, "Why don't we have Goldberg come and pin the Fiend again?" And I'm half joking, but I just wish other promotions would just go crazy sometimes and just have some wild shit happen. Like that's what's kind of missing sometimes. It's just have something crazy happen. Like we open with a guy sitting on a throne of bones.
Yeah.
Like yeah, you can go over the top, just make it entertaining.
Mm-hmm. So after that, that cut to Mil Muertes on the throne, we hear the crowd chanting "Lucha," the familiar chants of "Lucha, Lucha, Lucha," and Matt Stryker does his intro for the show, and he thanks us, the believers, because he says, without us, this is not possible. Them coming back is not possible. And you know what? He's not wrong. Because without that outcry, because you know what? El Rey Network, nobody had El Rey Network at the time. I was one of like 10 people. So not a lot of people could watch this show. But those that did were so passionate about it that El Rey Network felt compelled enough to renew it for a second season.
And I'm glad they did. I mean, we got a few more seasons after this, but it is a shame. The network itself kind of hurt the show. Like the show helped the network, but the network didn't help the show at all.
Yeah. I said before on this very show that probably the second most viewed, and this is just me rambling, I could be completely wrong and off base, I haven't done the research, but I'd be willing to bet From Dusk Till Dawn, the series revival, was probably their second most watched show on the network behind this, and I'd be willing to bet the most watched episode of From Dusk Till Dawn was either, of course, the series premiere, or the episode where Brian Cage was a guest star.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably right.
Like, that's the kind of clout you're getting from this gross wrestling promotion, because we know how much television hated wrestling at the time. This was not 2018, when maybe if Lucha Underground came around a few years later, they'd still be around and still be thriving. But unfortunately, they may have been a little bit too ahead of their time. But either way, enough about that, because our first match of the night, by the way, Katrina came to the ring, compelled Melissa Santos to come to her. Katrina whispered something to Melissa. Melissa then introduced us to the first match of the night, which was Phoenix versus King Cuerno for the Gift of the Gods. If I had two words to describe this match, I would say amazingly physical.
Amazingly physical, tons of hot spots. Like, I didn't even write down any of the psychology or the story. I just wrote down, like, and we tried to avoid this. We tried to avoid just going, play by play. But I mean, with Phoenix, he was doing some wild shit.
Dude,
like
he Irish whips Cuerno towards from one corner to the other, runs right alongside with him, and boots him in the face with a Yakuza kick.
Dude, it was great. I mean, and they started off with some very technical mat wrestling too, lucha-based mat wrestling. So even if you're a technical fan, like if you're someone that doesn't like just, oh, I don't like high spots, I like story, I like, technical wrestling. You had that in the beginning of the match. Like it had a good pace, and it just only amped up as it went on. So it wasn't like they just went out and started doing their finishers on each other. They eased into it at first, but then Phoenix is not human, so it only lasted for so long. I mean, one of my favorite spots was what did he do? He actually he jumped from the top rope, did a flying arm drag after he springboarded onto the top of the turnbuckle. Like he didn't climb, he springboarded, then jumped into the arm drag. Like it's a lot of work for just an arm drag, but it looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, sorry, Eddie. What did you think of this match, pal?
Well, I don't want to go move by move. It was great, but I'm trying to get my timeline straight. So Sunday night, I watched a little bit of Hell in a Cell. It was the first WWE I'd watched in a few weeks, and I caught the end of Cesaro Rollins. Pretty good. And then, the hockey game was still in intermission, so it's like, of course, I get the Alexa Bliss match, and I watched a little bit of that before I'm like, no more. But it was like, God, these camera cuts suck. And the very next night, watching Lucha Underground, I was like, man, I forgot so much how much I love the filmography of this, and like the way it's filmed. I remember there was what is the dive that Cuerno does? The Spear of Destiny, or
Arrow from Hell.
Yeah, the Spear from Hell. Spear of Destiny.
Spear of Destiny is a reference to Constantine, which we just reviewed.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, there was the camera just catches Cuerno as he flies right over it, and I'm like, man, I forgot how good looking this show is the way it was shot, and it just made me hate the constant camera cuts even more so.
And they do make it. I like what about the cameras. The way they shoot it is that they give it like a gritty effect sometimes with certain angles.
Yeah.
And even the one I like is when they don't do it often, but the one from the very top, when it looks straight down. They didn't do it this show, but every once in a while they'll do it. And it looks pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, at one point, Phoenix hit a step-up corkscrew plancha. Even just saying that out loud is just like, what the hell? Rey Fenix, he's not human.
Yeah, any of his moves require like 3 nouns and 5 adjectives to describe. Yeah. At least.
Oh my God.
I mean, this was probably the best match to start off the season with.
Dude, this is the polar and exact opposite of Chavo Guerrero versus Blue Demon Jr.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Oh my God. But all of that, and it doesn't matter, because King Cuerno just outpowers Rey Fenix. He hits Thrill of the Hunt. Now, granted, that doesn't win the match, but it takes a lot out of him. And King Cuerno does win the match and become the new Gift of the Gods holder off of a new inventive pile driver.
I was actually kind of hoping you would find out the name of it, because we've seen it before all the time, especially on indies. I think AEW will do it a few times. I mean, they had Phoenix just going full offense. It was mostly Phoenix doing offense until Cuerno was able to weather the storm, and he trapped him in this kind of cradle tombstone pile driver that once he hit him with, it was super believable that no one should be able to kick out of it. His arms are pinned in a way that he can't really, get his shoulders up, and he got dropped on his head. So everybody should lose from this move. So it didn't make either guy look weak, and they all look strong in the end as well.
And that's the thing is Lucha Underground will have these, and not a lot of companies can do this nowadays, but Lucha Underground will have these matches where they will have definitive winners, but no one gets buried.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to 50 book their way out of something so they can keep everyone strong or whatever. They can have a clear winner, and at the end of the day, no one gets buried.
Yep.
I think the move, I don't know, at least it's the same move that Chris Statlander uses, and that's Big Bang Theory, but I don't think King Cuerno calls it that. Probably
I don't.
big buck hunting or something.
Well, is that what the game was with the rifle in the arcade?
Oh, yeah.
Buck hunter or buck hunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna call it.
That's great, man. That's great. So after that match, we get a vignette for the former Trios champions. You may know them as Team Havoc, but the listeners of the Grave Consequences podcast know them as Jesse and the Rippers. And they are arriving at the temple. Of course, referring to Evil East, Son of Havoc, and Angelico. They arrive and immediately are met by Katrina. They ask for that. No, they demand their rematch. Katrina says no. She says, you know what? Meal wants you to wrestle, but he wants you to wrestle each other. And Son of Havoc's like, what the hell? We just spent a year trying to become friends. We're not going to wrestle each other. And Katrina says, whatever, but whoever wins this gets to challenge Mil Muertes for the title tonight.
Did she say tonight? Because I didn't know if she said tonight.
She did say tonight.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, there was not a switcheroo at the end of the show.
At Huntington, we've been asking ourselves, can we make saving money any easier? And we think we've solved it. Introducing Money Scout. It analyzes your spending habits, income, and expenses to find money not being used in your checking account, then pushes it to savings automatically. Why would a bank do that? Just to help people thrive. That's how we reinvent banking. Huntington, welcome. Subject to eligibility, terms, conditions, and account agreements. Learn more and enroll at huntington.com/moneyscout.
I will say that.
Wasn't there a point where Eva Lisa was like, yeah, my leg's working now too. So it's like, congratulations, you're not injured.
Yes. Congratulations. You're not in a cast anymore. But Evilise says, you know what? We're in. And Evilise also lets Katrina know that she is coming for her right after she becomes the Lucha Underground champion. That seems to be a hell of a prediction right there. And let's see here. Oh, no, this must have been when Katrina came to the ring and whispered to Melissa. Because, she does that. That's what I wrote down in my notes. And Melissa announces our next match is a triple threat match for the number one contendership to the Lucha Underground champion Mil Muertes. We see Angelico come out and the crowd kind of boos, and I'm like, are they booing because they don't like Angelico, or are they booing because they seem to know the score?
I don't think they figured it out yet, but Angelico's kind of a douche. Maybe that's why they booed him.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is he is definitely and this is a hard thing to do, but he is definitely the least likable of the three. And by the way, it's not a hard thing to do because of Matt Cross, definitely not, but the other third of the trio. Oh, man. But after Angelico comes Evilise, and then Son of Havoc. And before we get to that, we see we see a vignette of Katrina congratulating King Cuerno. And she says, you know what, don't forget about the deal. And Cuerno says, you've got nothing to worry about, and neither does Mil Muertes. And then we get our match of the Jesse and the Rippers collide.
This was a good match, too. I mean, they had a lot of... You could tell they really thought about this match, and they planned out quite a few spots and sequences. I mean, I think the beginning sequence was them all trying not to hit Evilise, and Havoc and Angelico trying to hit each other and missing and still hitting her anyway. And then I think in the second sequence, she switched it up where she made it so even though they were trying to hit her, they ended up hitting each other as well. So she was she took a lot of the impact in the beginning, but she started figuring it out and switching it so that they started hurting each other instead about halfway through, I think. But that's before they even started going into their other spots.
Yeah. Did any spot in particular stick out to either of you?
Not really for me. I would just say the story was well done, that it helped put over Evilise as the fan favorite.
Yeah, I would agree. They the way they planned the spots out really told a compounding story of her not necessarily being the underdog, but being able to win through ingenuity, cleverness.
Well,
I mean, just the win itself was very clever for her.
the win was clever, but it didn't feel stolen as well. Like, she neutralized Son of Havoc. She
Correct.
did.
Yeah, it
And
wasn't a roll up or distraction pin. It was take this guy out and let me pin this person while they're both weak.
Exactly. And we alluded to it, of course. Ivelisse wins this match, and we'll get to challenge Mil Muertes tonight. But it's worth noting that rumor and innuendo, as Bruce Pritchard would say, is that this main event that we get later on, Ivelisse and Mil Muertes, could have alluded to something that's going to happen in the third season. And you can guess why it didn't happen. Should be pretty easy, knowing Ivelisse. It's because she was injured at the time.
Oh.
Yes. But enough about that. Before we get to the main event, there was a vignette where we see 3 just random douchebag jabronis looking for the temple, but it said 375 miles away from Boyle Heights.
It's a strange amount of distance, very specific, but
So what, they were like somewhere in like New Mexico?
Yeah, how do you even get that far? And what was Io Shirai doing out there?
What?
Isn't that who it was?
No, sir.
She was in Lucha Underground.
Yeah, but
later.
She was not the Black Lotus.
Oh, was that who that was?
Yeah.
Well, I thought
I
think
don't know. They didn't give her a name in the episode. What do you want me to do?
What? You're supposed to know this, man. This is the second season. They established her character in the first season. They spent way too much time establishing her character in the first season.
Along with you guys.
Oh, that hurt my feelings.
You should be watching along and listening to the show as well.
But actually, he brings up a good point though. Like, is her name Black Lotus or is that the tribe or clan? I forget.
Maybe it's both. I don't know.
I'm referring to her as Savannah because you told me that was her announcer name, and I don't remember what her name was.
Yeah, Eddie. She was the ECW ring announcer right before it became NXT, for what it's worth. But
I didn't watch it. It got unwatchable.
She's like, "Oh, you're looking for the temple. Follow me."
Yeah, what was she doing out there? Not Io Shirai.
She's the Okay, I'll recap because it's so batshit stupid. This is why you don't remember her. She was seeking revenge. This is catching up our fans from first season. She was seeking revenge for the person that killed her family, which was Dario Cueto's younger brother, Matanza. But Dario convinces her that what's his name, Dragon Azteca, is actually the person that killed her family. So she kills Dragon Azteca, the guy that trained her kung fu. And
oh, by the way, Dario Cueto convinced this to her while he had her kidnapped.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't remember any of this.
It's very convoluted. She's like the most gullible person in the planet, and she works for Dario now.
Mm-hmm.
No. When does Io Shirai come in?
Later in season 2, I think.
Io Shirai does definitely not come on the show at all.
Yeah, she does.
Shut up.
Her and who's the other one who just quit
Eddie!
like a month late? What? Oh, am I spoiling it?
Remember the spoil thing? Jesus Christ, dude. Oh man.
Don't worry about it. I can edit it out.
Oh, don't edit out too much. Don't hurt his feelings.
No, keep it all in.
I'm actually torn on whether I should keep it in because it actually might entice more people to tune in.
Oh yeah, Io Shirai was on the show.
And who's the pirate girl? James will get mad at us. Yes, Kairi Sane.
That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
And Mayu Iwatani as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, she was someone else on the show. But enough about all that. Enough about spoiler talk. We have a main event. We have Ivelisse, the first ever woman challenging for the Lucha Underground Championship against Mil Muertes. And by the way, it's worth noting Son of Havoc and Angelico were at Ivalice's side, even though she had just beaten them for what it's worth. So, good on them to stay tight like that. But it's all for naught because Mil Muertes beckons the Disciples of Death, and they almost immediately neutralize Angelico and Son of Havoc.
I think they carry them away, don't they?
Ew, yes, they do.
Yeah, like big sacks of crap.
Yep. Which big boy Matt Cross is not a sack of crap. But as they're being carried away, Mil Muertes is holding Ivalice in full Nelson, forcing her to watch, and he is smiling as well. It was a great touch.
Yeah, they're really playing up Mil just being a dick, even though the one thing that kind of threw me off was like, yeah, they're doing all this dickish stuff and they're in charge and the deal they have with Cuerno. It almost seemed unlike Mil. This seems more like Katrina.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like Mil Muertes being the man of 1,000 deaths, like he doesn't have a lot of personality to him. He doesn't really get angry anymore. Not since Grave Consequences.
That's true.
He's basically like kind of like Michael Myers to a degree.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, at some point, Matt Stryker says Krav Maga, and I was like, oh, like Trump karate.
Yep, just like it.
The way he said Maga, he didn't say Krav Maga, like everyone and their brother says, even non-practicing people such as myself. He said Krav Maga.
Yeah. Here's another spoiler. Matt Stryker gets really bad as the show goes on.
Whatever, dude. I'll have to take your word for it because I don't remember him. I do not remember him regressing on the show.
That I do recall. It was...
By the way, Mil Muertes spent the early stages of this match working over the lower back. Ivalice at one point is damn near throwing live rounds at the stomach of Mil Muertes, and it's doing nothing.
No, but she's trying. Like they managed to get the crowd behind her, even though she really stands no chance.
Yeah,
she's just absorbing it, very much like almost like a non-comedic Orange Cassidy.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So as she's doing that, eventually Mil Muertes gets tired of it, knocks her down, and does the wag the finger like Dikembe Mutombo. But for some reason, Matt Stryker calls it the finger of death.
Yes, and I thank you for reminding me because I wrote down the quotes because this is my favorite part of the show. He says, the finger of death wags. And Vampiro says, the spider senses the fly. Which, sounds pretty, wise, like some kind of Confucius shit, but it is coming from Vamp.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I was just like, oh no, he saw the freaking Dikembe Mutombo Geico commercial and decided to imitate it on the show.
Maybe.
Who knows, man? But at one point, Ivalice gets a hope spot from a chokehold, and at that point, commentary keeps harping on and on about she's going on hope. She's going on hope. They were really on the nose about the hope spot.
They were, and they had a great crowd because their crowd I noticed was booing everyone that's a bad guy, booing everyone that's a good guy, regardless of what they were actually like doing. Because Ivalice is kind of unlikable.
Yeah, inherently, yes.
And the crowd was behind her. The crowd wanted her to win. I root for Mil.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a nice job of making it more believable and not just, battering and beating the shit out of her, like, again, which they'll later go on to do. But at least in this episode, they did a nice job of the man-on-women match, which is my theory. That's probably not much of a hot take as to why it never really got a stronger channel, since we were talking about that.
Yeah, that's not a hot take at all. You're probably 100% on the nose.
Yeah, because this was like 2016, 2017. It probably was a hard sell.
Yeah, it still would be today, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, by the way, at one point, Ivalice locks on an armbar over the ropes on Mil Muertes, and Mil just kicks her off of him.
I mean, he was definitely playing with his food. It definitely was, a spider tormenting the fly in the web.
It was, but at the same time, that can be kind of foolish because Ivelisse nailed a DDT. I think it was a tornado DDT, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not. That was what it was.
And she gets a 2 count of it. I thought the way she was positioned on the pin, it's like, oh, this is going to be one of those where he press slams her off of him as he's laying down. And no, the kick out was super weak. It was barely a kick out.
He barely got his shoulder up. I mean,
yeah.
They were really trying to get you to believe she could win. They were doing their damnedest to make it seem like there was a chance.
Yeah, and even more so when Mil Muertes spears Katrina. Ivelisse moves out of the way. Katrina eats the spear. And Ivelisse damn near steals the win.
Definitely. That was an incredible spot. The crowd loved that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all for naught, though, because eventually Mil Muertes, he is inevitable. He hits the flatliner. Smooth-ass flatliner. Gotta love that flatliner, you know what I'm saying? And he gets the definitive win and retains his Lucha Underground Championship.
Great match. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, good way to get the new champions some good heat.
Yeah. And Greg, what did you have to say?
I was just gonna say it was a great match. I mean, they really were building Ivelisse to be something great because she just went through a match. That's the psychology. She just beat 2 of her best friends, so she sacrificed and she survived, only to come up short barely with Mil. And they didn't really bury Mil by doing it. He didn't look weak, which is really kind of if writing it on paper, it doesn't sound like he would look. It doesn't sound like it wouldn't damage him, but he comes out looking fine.
Yeah. No, I mean, you hit your move clean in the ring. You're fine, buddy. You're fine.
True.
And Mil beckons Katrina into the ring. And she's going to go for the lick of death, but she decides against it. And she kind of orders Mil Muertes to, do some more damage. And he has her in flatliner position again when the man who, by the way, gets the biggest pop he's ever gotten in Lucha Underground. This is his best face work so far in the series. Prince Puma runs in and makes the save. The former Lucha Underground champion himself. He saves Ivelisse. They walk away, and they are, they are at the steps. Mil Muertes is waving at them in the ring, taunting them. When all of a sudden, the true ace of Lucha Underground, Pentagon Jr. runs in, hits an epic lung blower on Mil Muertes. And then at the specific approval of Vampiro, he breaks the arm of the Lucha Underground champion, Mil Muertes.
I mean, they just threw everything out at the end. They're like, you know what? Prince Puma makes the save. You know what? Fuck it. Pentagon breaks some fucking arms. They just said they went all out with the first episode. They had the surprises. They left you with that's kind of like Stone Cold coming out with the beer truck, Yeah.
Yeah, and they did all this with a grand total of 13 characters on the show because you've got, of course, the former Trios champion. Maybe my numbers are low. You've got the former Trios champions.
You can't count, so.
You've got Mil Muertes. You've got the Disciples of Death. That's 7 people. Katrina, 8. Yeah, it's going to be more than 13. Either way, 14, 15. Damn it. Maybe it was 13. Either way, less than 20 people on this episode. And it didn't feel empty whatsoever.
No, there was. This is the kind of episode I know at the end, near the end of the previous season, there were some episodes that were a slog to get through, especially with
when it was here's Tejon, Blue Demon.
Yeah, that stuff really dragged. This episode, it's a 40. How long are these episodes? 40 minutes, 45.
40,
yeah, it feels like 20.
Yeah, absolutely.
You flow through it.
But that's not all. Because we cut back to the Temple Jabronis. they see a painted on a graffitied wall with a luchador mask on it that says the temple, and that's when they meet Dario Cueto. And one of the jabronis like, I don't know about all this. And what's the chick doing here?
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Like, why is she just standing here? Maybe he watches the show. Maybe he's like, why is she working for you? You killed her family. It's,
What if that's how they get the series right there? Yeah, he killed your dad or whatever, right? And she's like, oh, and just leaves, and that's it.
If they were going for like the Disney version of a douchebag that's like, oh, women are stupid. Like it was pretty.
It was literally MC Vagina.
Yeah, I can see that.
Eddie, if you don't remember MC Vagina, I'll send you the video.
Send me it too, because I do think it's funny.
Yes. Anyway, she was not having that "what's the chick doing here" comment. She I believe fucks with the guy's hand, right?
She does the Batman backhand, punches him, then does a reverse hammer blow to his nuts, and then does another Batman backhand. Yes.
Either way, his homies were laughing at him. Dario says, "Hey guys, it's $20 to enter." A promoter's promoter. They give him the 20, and the last guy in says, "Hey, who's fighting tonight?" And Dario says, "You are," and shuts the door.
Hey man, he just got himself $60.
Absolutely, he did, and he got Matanza dinner.
Exactly. He's not a bad businessman.
No, and he's not a bad older brother either. That's the episode. So as always, we are going to grade this episode, and I thought this was a strong premiere. It's not the best thing they've ever done, far from it, but I'm going to give this a solid A-.
I'm going to give it an A+.
Okay. Eddie, you can give this up to an S.
An S?
Yeah.
S standard.
Oh.
Like top notch.
Like S as if it's breaking the scale, like a 6-star match.
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
But other than that, it's F to A, just like grades.
Well, I'm gonna have to go B+.
Okay.
I wasn't crazy about the Mil Muertes arm break. I don't think you...
Really?
Well, yeah, I don't think you make your champion look weak that early. But I was okay with the Prince Puma run-in, and yes, that was a great pop, one that he probably hasn't gotten in a couple years. So,
well, to be fair, you take your shots at WWE's treatment of Ricochet, but in the first season, he was not even though he was the champion for the majority of it, he was not that strongly booked a babyface. Like a lot of his retention relied on the intervention of other people.
And I don't have a problem with Eddie's grade either because, I give it an A because I'm a fan of Pentagon. Like it is definitely clouding my judgment. And when I saw it, and even when I saw it the second time, I forgot it was happening. I popped because I love it when Pentagon breaks his arm. And this is Pentagon. Like the best he did was a match against Vampiro last season. This is him going against the top guy and breaking his arm. So it was one of those things where, in the moment, it's pretty awesome. If I were booking the show and if I were writing it, I probably would heed Eddie's criticism and be like, you know what, this is our top guy. Probably shouldn't have him injured in kayfabe on the first episode.
Yeah. Plus, I'm a Mil Muertes fan, so
Listen,
maybe I was a little harsh.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But I'm saying this. I enjoyed the arm break as a guy who likes Prince Puma and Pentagon and Mil Muertes. I liked what they did here. I really did. Again, we're all entitled to our opinion. I thought your B+, you said?
Yes.
I thought your B+ was a little harsh, but again, you are entitled to your opinion. And before we get out of here, I do just want to say thank you for joining the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I'll, if there's ever another big episode coming along, I'll hop on again. It's fun to watch.
There will be aplenty for sure. That being said, we are going to get out of here. Of course, we want you to check out all the other great shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. There's about 8 of them. I can't remember all of them right now. I'm not going to lie to you. By the way, rest in peace to Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show. It is no longer part of the network. Unfortunately, I believe they have hung up the headphones, so to speak. So shout out to them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they put it in the group chat that you're never in.
I'm there. I just don't catch everything.
Guys, 8-Bit Suplex, All Things Elite, Keeping It Strong Style, us, Great Match Generator, One Nation Radio. I already said Keeping It Strong Style.
8-Bit Suplex.
Yeah, 8-Bit. 8-Bit, All Things Elite,
Great One Nation Radio.
One Nation Radio.
Keep Great Match Generator.
Yep.
My World with Jeff Jarrett.
Yes. The Kurt Angle Show. I feel like I'm missing something, but
I did 8-Bit. Oh, All Things Elite.
I already said that.
I don't know. I think you forgot about Floyd again.
Look, if there is a show that I am missing, I am sorry. I mean no offense. I want you guys to check out every show here on the network. I want you to listen to ours first, though, but I want you to check out every show here on the network. Yes. And after that, I want you to listen to Eddie and Caleb's HeroCast every Wednesday night after AEW Dynamite.
We have a wrestler on the 2 episodes in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a tie-in.
And
World Champions, too.
Yeah. 6 days after this episode drops on July 1st, which, by the way, we are recording on June 22nd. But 6 days after this episode drops, we will be dropping our review of Sin City, where we may or may not, and I'm not making any promises, may have Greg on the show.
Yeah, it's possible.
Another wrestler in that movie.
The
wrestler.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. See what I did there?
Yes. Oh, okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You did a good job, pal. But with that, we've ran kind of long, but it is the premiere and we had a guest. So you know what? Sue us. I don't give a shit. Thank you for listening. God bless you. And remember, if you fuck with grave consequences, there will only be, of course, as I said in the title of the show, grave consequences.